Hello, today we're continuing the witch series and I'm going to be making a mossy felted witch cape. So since I did needle felting for the hat, I'm going to be doing wet felting for the cape. I wanted to try out some new techniques and it's been a while since I've done any wet felting, so that'll be a little bit of a learning curve remembering how to do that. Last time I did wet felting was for a university production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. I wet felted a couple of the costumes for the fairies and they turned out really cute and I really enjoyed the process, so I'm excited to do some more. I bought a bunch of stuff from Living Felt Supplies. I'll put their link in the description as well as the other materials that you're going to need for this because there are a lot, but thankfully aside from the wool it's all fairly cheap. The general process of wet felting is kind of that you get your design together, you need to expand it by about 30% because it'll all shrink down, and then you lay out different layers of your wool fibers and just agitate it a lot. There's lots of like rolling back and forth and it gets kind of like wet and sudsy, so it's a little bit messy, but it's a lot of fun. But before we get started, I wanted to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community where you can learn new skills and boost your creativity, and you guys know that I love Skillshare. I've been a member of Skillshare for years and I actually originally joined because I wanted to start a fashion company, and they have a lot of classes on fashion designing and marketing and how to run a business yourself. And it was super helpful when that was kind of the dream goal. That is no longer the dream, but I have remained a member of Skillshare throughout the years because I'm always finding new things to learn on their platform, and they have a lot of really valuable classes. One that I've been watching recently is Cooking Like a Chef: 5 Fundamental Skills for Kitchen Success by Alex Gabriel Aino. I have loved cooking for decades and I don't know, I think I'm pretty good at it, but I've kind of fallen out of the habit because, you know, life kind of gets in the way and I'm really busy lately. This class goes through the basics of cooking, like how to prepare efficiently and how you cook different foods at different heat levels. But what I've found super useful is how to create new meals out of leftovers. It's helped me get a little more creative with food rather than staring into the fridge at unassembled ingredients, and gets my brain working with something outside of my typical creative outlets. If you'd like to try Skillshare, the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a 1-month free trial. So thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's go get started. Okay, today we're going to be doing some wet felting. That's why my table is covered with a garbage bag. It gets very messy with water. Like, it's just water, so it's not a huge deal. But you do want to make sure that you've got lots of towels and your garbage bag, and it's better to do it outside, but I can't really film outside because it gets too loud. So this is what we're doing. The supplies you'll need some bubble wrap, a pool noodle or something similarly shaped to a pool noodle, towels. I'm using this soap. It's let's see, Castille's soap, but usually the tutorials recommend using olive oil soap. I just couldn't find any. And you just want something that's not gonna suds up a lot and make a lot of bubbles because those can get trapped. Some netting. This will go between your wool and your hands just when it's not felted at all, just to keep it from like pulling up and sticking to your hands, because dry wool will stick to wet hands. And I think that's mostly it. You also need hot water and like some sprinkly stuff. I've got a spray bottle. I've also got my kettle behind the camera. They have special tools for this, but I don't do wet felting enough that I'm buying them yet. Finally, you're gonna want some wool. So this is my box of wool that I bought for this project. I bought a lot of different colors, mostly greens because I do want it to be mostly green, and then I got some oranges and reds as well. You can do some fall colors at the very end of this. If I've forgotten anything, I'll put a full list in the description and I'll put links to where I got the felt and everything. Everything else you just kind of get wherever you can get it. Cool, so let's get this set up. First off, I don't know if you can exactly tell, but I've drawn on this garbage bag like kind of oval shape. It's kind of like an egg. That's going to be my guide for where I need to lay out all of the wool. So this is a pretty big shape, right? But when you're felting, everything will shrink down. Like if you've ever accidentally put a wool sweater in the washer, you've seen this happen. That's basically the process that we're doing, but it shrinks down. So you want to do everything kind of 30% larger than your finished project. The more you do it, like different wools have different shrink rates, but 30% is a pretty good average. So you want to start big and it'll get smaller. So that's what I've drawn out here. I've also drawn a little neck hole because this is a cape, and then I drew the like half line there. I'm gonna leave the top side open hopefully it doesn't felt together too much, but I would rather not cut it because that'll leave a really blunt edge. Going to do kind of like blunted edges on everything, but I don't want it to be like so blunt like a cut edge. It'll just be a felted edge. So the first thing that we need to do after laying out the garbage bag and drawing the template, you can also use a paper template, but I thought this was easier. I just drew it on with a paint marker. We're gonna lay out bubble wrap. Put some towels up here just to catch any extra moisture. We will need a towel under our work when we get to like the fulling process, which is where the pool noodle comes in. But for the first part, I want to be able to see where my template is, so I'm gonna leave it without the towel. And then next, we want to lay down a layer of bubble wrap. We want to do this bubble side down. Okay, so I have 2 of these 4 colors here, and the rest I have 1 ounce of. I think I'm gonna start with the lighter one. I need to think about how I want to work with this. Like, do I want to work from the inside out or the outside in? Let's do from the inside out. That just seems easier because then I can see the pretty part. I'm gonna start with this light and dark brown. I want kind of like a mottled tree bark looking kind of thing. I want it to look kind of like tree bark on the inside and then have it be more mossy looking and leaf looking once we get to the outside. So I'm going to use these 2 colors for the first base layer, and instead of doing like all one direction horizontally and vertically, for my first layer everything's going to be going around the circle, kind of like a racetrack, and then for my second layer everything's going to go like a radius outside, so like sun rays going out. It's a little hard to see the pattern now, but I can see it, so we'll just hope that it works out. But you just want to pull out little pieces like that. felted and done. It's, I mean, still a bit damp and it's got soap in it. So now I'm gonna go soak this in water and vinegar. It's just like mostly water with a little splash of vinegar, and it soaks for 15 minutes, and I'm gonna clean up and then we'll let this dry. Once it's dry, I wanted to stick a little pleat in the back because the neckline did get much larger than I anticipated. So that's just because this all shrinks like within itself, so I should have made neckline a little bit smaller. I thought I made it small enough, but I didn't. So I'm gonna take a little pleat in the back so it's got like a cute little inverted box pleat, and that'll be really cute anyways. And then I gotta think about closure. I'm not sure if I want to do like a toggle at the front or like a ribbon or something. I'll think about that while this is drying. But I'm really happy. Like, look how pretty this texture is. Kind of what comes out when you start throwing it on the table. So after I did all the rolling, I tossed it on the table a bunch of times, and I did that in 2 groups of 50, so 100 times total, and it just makes this nice pebbly texture, and that's just the wool shrinking back up, and it's really pretty. The vinegar will help get rid of all of the soap, and it's gonna make the wool shiny again, and not like really shiny, but it'll make it so it's a little less matte and make it feel more like wool again. The soap raises the pH, so the vinegar will bring it back down so it's more like normal wool again. I didn't go through all the steps in this because there are a lot of videos that do show you how to do every single step. I just kind of showed myself doing the process, so I hope that's okay. I'll link a couple of tutorials in the description because honestly they're gonna be better at explaining it than I am anyways. But I'm really happy with it. I think it's so cute. Yeah. All right, let's go finish this up and then we can come back and decide on a closure. Overall, I'm super happy with how this cape turned out. I think it's really cute, and especially for my first time doing felting in probably about like 6-7 years, I think that it worked out really well. When I did put the back pleat in it, it kind of made the back shoot straight out because it's not super drapey. So I left the back pleat out, but I think that it looks really good without it anyways. It ended up fitting fairly well, so I wasn't too concerned with having the neckline be a little bit too wide. So I think it turned out fine. I think that in the future, if I were to make another cape, I'll probably do some kind of darting or shaping along the shoulders, because as it is, it kind of shoots straight out. And like, that's fine. Like, it looks rustic, I guess, but it doesn't drape super well because of the material, and then because it is literally just a circle. So I think in the future I would probably do some darting just at the shoulders so that it does like fall a little bit more gracefully. I knew the wool would be pretty stiff, but I only did 4 layers, and I thought that maybe it would like retain some of the drapiness that it had when I was working with it. Once it dried, it did become a lot stiffer, so just something that I learned in the process, so something to note for next time. I also really want to do a lot more wet felting. I think that I am going to make a pair of matching bracers, just like arm warmers for that as well, just because like then I'll have multiple options for the like leather leaf bracers or some like felted mossy bracers. It'll just give me a little bit more variety, and I think it would be a lot of fun to make that. So I think that I am going to do that sometime in the future, but probably not for a little while. I think the colors all looked really nice together. I liked my little bits of red and orange that I put in there, and the closure I found pretty last minute, but I think it went well with it anyways. My other option was to do a ribbon closure, but I wanted it to look a little less, I don't know, I didn't really want the look of a ribbon. I wanted it to be a little bit more like rustic, made of metal, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. The process went fairly smoothly and it didn't make as big of a mess as I thought it would, so that was nice. And like the mess that it did make was all water, so not a big deal. And I am really happy with the shape and like the colors and the texture. I really like the kind of pebbly texture it gave, and I am like, there's not that much I would change about it. Maybe I would add a collar or something in the future, but I really wanted this to just be one big piece of fabric, I guess, so that it looked like it was just kind of a piece of moss that was pulled up off of a rock and like dropped onto my shoulders. And I think I accomplished that look fairly well, so it worked out. I really enjoy the wet felting process. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the creative process is really different because you're not so much sewing stuff together. It's a lot of like very tactile kind of work, and I really enjoy that. I also love sewing, like of course I love sewing, but it's nice to kind of branch out like I've been doing with the leather working and the felting. I think being able to use lots of different techniques is a lot of fun because then you get lots of different textures and different looks to everything while also getting to do different types of creative work. I enjoyed the process of wet felting a lot more than I enjoyed the process of needle felting. Needle felting is very tiring and I'm always slightly in danger of stabbing myself, whereas with the wet felting there's not really much you can do to hurt yourself. Theoretically, I guess if you pour boiling water on yourself, that's not great, but it's generally less dangerous than needle felting, and I find it less tiring. Like the motion of needle felting does hurt my arms after a while, so I enjoy wet felting more. It is a little bit more of a process to like set everything up and then do the whole thing and then take everything down because it's a little messier and it's harder to just pick up and bring with you places. Like the needle felting, I've been able to work on the second hat for the giveaway in my spare time and I can bring it places, but obviously I can't do that with wet felting because that's just, there's too much stuff to bring. However, wet felting is a shorter process, so there's that too. Like I can knock out a wet felting project in like half a day, whereas needle felting takes a lot more time. Pros and cons of those things. Personally, I do enjoy wet felting a lot more. So probably you will see more wet felting projects from me in the future, especially because now I have a lot of the supplies and I have a lot of felt, batting, felt. I have a lot of wool that I need to use up eventually, so more projects in the future. And that's all I got for this video. Sorry, this one was also a little bit baby bat light. I was trying to keep her away from this whole process. With the leather and with the felting, both of these processes are a little bit more dangerous for the cats because if they eat some of the wool or like they get into the leather supplies, like that's not great for cats. So I've been keeping them out of my studio while I work on these things. So there's been a little bit of an absence of cats. Sorry, they're still around, I promise. Then they will be back for future videos where I'm doing stuff that's a little bit more pet friendly. But that's all I've got for this video. I also wanted to thank Skillshare again for sponsoring this video. The first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a 1-month free trial, so you should definitely check it out because Skillshare is great and I love them a lot. So with that, that's all I have for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you have other ideas for wet felting projects you think I should try out, I want to do arm warmers and I want to try doing a witch hat for wet felting as well. Those are the two that I have in my mind, but if you have other things that you want to see me try to wet felt, then let me know and I will add that to the list. And if you want to see other projects of mine in the future, then please subscribe. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye!